Hello, everybody. Today we're talking about a very important concept for early America, the Monroe Doctrine. Your objective question today is, how did the Monroe Doctrine set the tone for U.S. foreign policy? Remember that foreign policy is the way we deal with other nations. So the question really is, how did the Monroe Doctrine set the tone for how the United States is going to deal with foreign nations, other powers, okay? So let's set the stage. At this point, there are European nations who are operating as absolute monarchs, and these are nations that are headed by a king or queen, and oftentimes they have a lot of colonies. And European nations, specifically the English, the French, and the Spanish, have set up many colonies throughout North and South America, and in the middle, in this little area we refer to as Latin America, specifically the Spanish. However, what we've begun to see are these revolutions that occur where the monarchs actually lose power over their colonies. A perfect example is, of course, us. We rebel against the English because we wanted, democracy, and we wanted our enlightened ideas and stuff like that, and we won. And then France followed suit. They rebelled. They had a revolution of their own, right? And what we see is a chain reaction of people looking to us as an example, and some of these colonies, especially in Latin America against the Spanish, begin to rebel and try to declare their own independence from their mother country. This is going to, in turn, have European nations looking at democracy as the bad guy. They see democracy as a threat. So European nations, the really powerful countries over there, think that democracy is bad, is evil, they need to shut this down. While on the other hand, Americans are loving this. We love the idea that if you want democracy, you can have it. We love the idea of overthrowing a mother country and having all these, rights and stuff like this. We love it. And what we really see is this centered around in Latin America. Spain's beginning to lose control over some of its colonies who have established, themselves as independent nations with democracy and stuff. They're losing control, and we like it. When Spain starts to, make moves about, hey, we're going to, crack down on this and retake over Latin America, England and the United States start to get a little concerned, because at this point, England and the United States make a lot of money trading with these new Latin American countries. And if Spain were to, reassert control over these areas and become, direct Spanish colonies again, England and the United States would lose out on a lot of market down there. So we don't want the Spanish to retake over. We want these small countries to remain independent. So England reaches out to us and they say, listen, we've been through a lot together, but we both make a lot of money in Latin America. What do you think if we issue like a statement, if we team up together and basically just say that we recognize these new Latin American countries and that we want them to be independent? And we say, well, do we want to go on record saying we support Latin America? Yes. Do we want Latin America to remain independent? Yes. Do we want to team up with the British? No. Our Secretary of State, John Quincy Adams, there he is right there in the upper left, looking very menacing, right? John Quincy Adams warns our President Monroe that if we team up with the British to make this statement, if we work with the British, we are always going to look like the weaker little brother who's just tagging around, following England around, backing them up, saying, yeah, in the background, and not really having any power. He says if we team up with England, we will look weak, and Monroe agrees. And in 1823, we decide to go rogue. And without consulting with England, we kind of basically take their idea, and instead of teaming up with them, we just come up with our own declaration. And here are some excerpts from that. The occasion has been judged proper for asserting that the American continents are henceforth not to be considered as subjects for future colonization by any European powers. But with the governments who have declared their independence and maintained it, we could not view any interposition for the purpose of oppressing them or controlling in any other manner their destiny by any European power in any other light than as the manifestation of an unfriendly disposition towards the United States. Now that's a lot, and there's a lot of fancy hoity-toity language. The Monroe Doctrine is going to be what comes out of this address that Monroe gives and delivers to Congress in December 2nd, 1823. It's initially written by John Quincy Adams. It is written by John Quincy Adams. It's delivered by Monroe. It becomes known as the Monroe Doctrine, and there are a few elements we need to be aware of. The first is that Monroe is basically saying that, hey, European nations, if you already have colonies here in North and South America, fine, but you're not getting any more. No longer shall you consider this entire half of our world to be open for colonization. Monroe's basically saying if you have colonies, you can keep them, but you're not getting any more. He's also telling European nations to leave North, South, Latin America alone, right? And it's a total power move. This political cartoon is great. I chose it for this exact reason. If you take a world map and literally just divide it down the center, right down the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, and you have North and South America on one side and all the other nations on the other. This is basically what Monroe is doing with the speech. He's literally just saying, stay out. And we're specifically looking over our shoulders at Russia as we're delivering this, because Russia's feeling a little froggy. At this point, Russia controls Alaska, which on this map, which is not 100% to scale, but we'll go with it, right up here, right? Technically, right, we can get from Russia, which is, if this thing goes all the way around, right here, it makes sense they have Alaska, but they're starting to come down what will eventually become the west coast of the United States, and they're starting to settle in that Oregon territory that we are currently sharing with the English, and that's making us nervous. We need Russia to kind of cool its jets here. So the Monroe Doctrine saying, you're not getting any more colonies, stay away from us, and that also means you, Russia. Now, if we had to simplify that even further, if I put you on the spot, if I saw you on the street and said, hey, you, what is the Monroe Doctrine? If you had to just spit it out as fast as you possibly could, you would tell me that it's basically telling the Europeans to stay out of the Western Hemisphere. It's drawing a line straight down the middle of the world and saying, stay off our half. Now, this is a power move. This is pretty impressive, right? If we can pull it off. So does it work? Kind of, right? The immediate impact of the Monroe Doctrine is kind of small. At this point, our military is super weak. We're so small. If any of the European powers tried to step up to us to square up, it wouldn't have gone well. This is an entire empty bluff, right? Like, there's no way we're going to be able to back this up, right? If Spain said, oh, yeah, you're going to do something, and then Monroe goes, yeah, we're going to do something. And then John Quincy Adams nudges Monroe and goes, what are we going to do? Monroe goes, I don't know, right? There was no way we'd be able to enforce this, right? But it's a bluff, and we're waiting to see if the Europeans call it, and no one really does. The long-term effects of the Monroe Doctrine, the reason this is so important, and this final bullet should almost be underlined, right? This is going to serve as an example, as a cornerstone. It basically establishes our foreign policy that we're going to follow for the rest of the 1800s and into the 1900s. This is basically going to be the foreign policy we follow all the way up until, virtually the end of World War II. Right? The idea that European nations need to go over there, we need to be over here, we're kind of staying in our lane, we're basically isolated, we'll trade with you, but don't come over here and cause issues for us. Now, George Washington would finally be like, yes, right? He's up in the clouds giving us high fives, because remember, one of the things he told us in his farewell address that we didn't listen to very well, right, was to avoid foreign entanglements. And this is exactly what George Washington was probably envisioning for us. And it took us a while to get there, but we finally are. So the Monroe Doctrine totally sets us up for foreign policy for the next, century and a half. All right, that's it for today. Make sure to answer your objective questions, and I'll see you later. Bye-bye.